Student housing is such a unique industry. The more unique an industry is, the more important it is for that industry to have a resource and a platform to share ideas and data, to determine best practices, and a platform to simply promote networking among the professionals in that industry. That's what we are setting out to provide with Student Housing Insight. Well, what's even more unique about the student housing industry is how unique those professionals are. They want to make a positive impact on the students and the university communities they serve. They understand they have an opportunity to touch the future. They come to work every day looking for ways to make that future bright. If you're one of those people, come be a part of Student Housing Insight. All right. Well, good afternoon or good morning if you're on the West Coast. Hope everyone's doing well, and welcome to this webinar on how to market and lease new developments presented by Student Housing Insight and Forest VR. I'm Wesley Dees, and I'll be your host today. Also the CEO of Student Housing Insight, and if you've never heard of Student Housing Insight, we are basically a platform to provide networking and education opportunities like today for student housing professionals. We also do a podcast by the same name. You can find that wherever you listen to podcasts. And then we also have a monthly webinar called Shop Talk that we do for the industry as well. So you can find out all about that at our website, studenthousinginsight.com. So, guys, I'm really excited about today's webinar. This is something that we did 2 years ago, I believe. Right at 2 years ago. And we had some really good feedback on it. And we decided we wanted to do that again. And we're doing it in coordination with Forest VR and their annual Designing for the Future report that came out last month. If you're not familiar with Forest VR, they create really some of the most photorealistic renderings you've ever seen. They are truly the best at what they do. For, I guess it's 3 years now, they have sponsored and spearheaded this Designing for the Future report, which surveys about 500 college students from across the U.S. to find out how they think about choosing off-campus housing. And before we jump into that today, I wanted to play a quick video from one of our sponsors for that helped with Forest on sponsoring this. So really quick before we get started, I'm going to play that video right now. Willie Butler, how are you?
I'm doing well, Wes. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. For those that don't know, you're Willie Butler with Empower PMC. You're one of the principals there. You're also the author of this book, Leasing, which you put out a couple of years ago. Talks all about leasing in the student housing industry.
Yeah, it sounds kind of fitting for this, right?
And yeah, just to give a quick plug, if you're out there and you want to find out what's in this book and how it can help your team, just go out to Amazon.com and look up Leasing or look up William Butler, and I'm sure you'll be able to find it. So, man, how are things?
Things are good, man. Doing God's work, one lease at a time, right? Just traveling across the nation, putting out fires. But that's what we're here for, right?
Well, hey, I hate that you couldn't join us live for the webinar today, but you are one of the sponsors for Forest's annual report, Designing for the Future. I want to thank you so much for being a sponsor of that, because it's really important that we get that report out each year. I think it gives us a ton of insight into what students are thinking and how they're thinking about the leasing process and what's in their apartments. So thanks so much for that. But hey, I wanted to bring you on and just really kind of allow you to give a little bit of background as to what Empower PMC does and what it is that Willie and Victoria do. So with that being said, I'll hand it off to you. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to. And again, the pleasure is all ours. I'm so happy to be able to sponsor this. Love everything that Forest does. In the way of what Empower PMC is, Empower is both a noun and a verb, right? Yes, it's who we are, but fortunate enough on our behalf, it's also what we're able to do, right? So we're known across the nation for being able to travel in and multiply our clients' leasing velocity, a lot of the times 3 to 4x, sometimes even more, depending on the asset and depending on the market. And yeah, that's fun for us, right? Yes, we're able to come in and sign a bunch of leases, but a lot of our clients enjoy the fact that we come in, we integrate with the already established property management company. And not only do we sign a bunch of leases, but we're able to instill both confidence and ability in the property management team so that they can do what it is that we do long after our engagement is done. See, because we typically send down national leasing specialists that'll be on the site from anywhere to 60 to 90 days, working every single day, all geared towards putting the head in the bed. But after those 90 days, you and I both know that, the property still has to operate, right? So we want to train the team to start setting the market standards instead of chasing the market averages so that they dominate their leasing seasons. And that's kind of what Empower is. And that's what our value proposition is to all of our clients.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect way to kind of wrap it all up. And, I could tell the audience from experience, I've done a couple of engagements with you for my clients, and in both situations, you guys just completely hit it out of the park. The one thing I would tell the audience, if you're listening to what Willie is saying and you're thinking, well, maybe we need Empower, maybe we need them at this site, or maybe our team needs to spend some time with them. This is obviously, there's probably a lot of properties out there that, maybe a little bit behind for this coming fall. I know you can help those people out, but where you guys really thrive, and what happened with, both of our engagements is we brought you in the fall, to kick things off. And that delivered, both times that we did that. So for those out there that are, thinking about getting in touch with Empower, really be thinking about getting them started this fall. I think that's key. Well, Willie, thanks so much for your time. We'll miss you on this webinar, but I'm sure you'll look at it on the replay.
Absolutely. Yeah, all again, right, sorry I couldn't be there, but you guys are going to be amazing.
All right, take care.
Hey, you too.
Well, again, thanks to Empower PMC with helping sponsor the report with you for us again. Let's go ahead and jump into introducing today's panel. I really wish I had this group of folks that I could have talked to before I did my first lease up. So with that being said, let's just go ahead, and Adam, I think we'll start with you.
Thank you, Wes. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be part of the panel today. My name is Adam J. I'm the Associate Vice President of New Development Marketing at Landmark Properties. I've worked in student housing for 17 years, which sounds crazy to say out loud. I certainly don't feel that old, but I guess that's the case. And this coming fall at Landmark, we've got 11 new developments that are going to be opening.
Great. You want me to go? You ready for me, Wes?
Yeah. We said alphabetically. I think B comes after A, so go for it, Bill.
It's been a long week. So we'll go with it. Billy Wilkinson here. I'm the CEO of Threshold, and for most of you that know, Threshold has been working. We really cut our teeth in student housing when we opened in 2013. We're working on 7 new starts right now. 4 of those are student housing projects. 3 of those are in other industries like senior housing. And this is going to make me feel old too, Adam, but I've been doing this for a little over 28 years in some sort of sales and marketing capacity. So excited to be here with everyone.
I know Jessica's having trouble with her computer, so I'm going to jump in and introduce myself. My name is Joanna Adolphs. I work at Cardinal Group Management. I am the Director of Marketing and Strategy. I've been at Cardinal Group for 6 years now, and I've been in the industry for 15. I have a ton of lease-up experience, so I have ops experience. I've gone back and forth between the marketing department and the operations, so I'm excited to be here. We have 7 lease-ups lined up for next year and a handful that have not been officially signed over to us, so we expect to have double digits this year, and we're really excited and getting prepared and ramped up for that.
And my name is Sarah Maxon. I am the new development specialist for CA Student Living. I've been with CA for 6 years, and I've been in the industry for almost 9, upcoming my 9th year anniversary. So it's very exciting. And this year, our company is really excited to deliver 4 beautiful new developments across the country. And similar to Joanna, I've done lease ups as a property manager. I've done operations. So I'm excited to be here today and share some new development knowledge.
Well, fantastic. Yeah, we've got some issues with Jessica. She sent me a message message saying she couldn't hear anything. So I will probably kind of step back here in just a second and try to help her with that. But so let's kind of set the stage here a little bit. This is really kind of geared towards folks that have not ever, worked on a new development, and to kind of give, what goes into, getting ready for move-in day. First of all, you've got the construction process, which is going to start somewhere 18 to 24 months before you put that first head in the bed, right? And then before that, you've got another 12 to 24 months that you're going to have for just for the pre-development part. So these projects really get started anywhere between 2.5 to 4 years before, they actually, you're able to actually move somebody in. So with that being said, when is the marketing plan created? And I wanted to, I was actually going to start off with Jessica on this, but while I go and help her really quick, when you guys start with the data points of what we're trying to get when we do our market analysis.
Well, I guess I'll kick things off and we can just kind of spitball here. But, I think on the Landmark side, we're very fortunate to be a fully integrated firm. So a lot of the initial research and kind of analytics of the market, our development team has already done that homework for us by the time it's coming to my desk and we're, getting ready to put together a marketing plan. But I think, going into any new market, it's very important to understand, number one, who is your target demographic going to be? And, the obvious answer is college students, but not all college students are the same. And, we do see differences in what is important in an off-campus apartment for a student region to region. And so it's very important to understand that. And also, I think, having a good understanding of how you're going to communicate your product's offering to that student. I think, in a lot of markets, maybe social media or, really fun marketing events is a great way to communicate and advertise and promote your property. But in other markets, it could be a different strategy. So I think just starting there, so, before you get too far into building out your plan, is a really great place to begin. Sarah, Joanna, do y'all have anything?
Yeah. I think the only thing I'd add to that is really understanding the typical student at the university that you're going to be serving. So, what does a student at the University of Austin, Texas look like? What does a student at the University of Wisconsin look like? Because to Adam's point, that's going to drive a lot of where you're going to focus your dollars. And it's also going to kind of help dictate, when does that marketing budget actually need to start? Some universities, it's really important to be on the ground very early, spring semester before you launch your leasing in August. And other universities, it's not as important because the market's not as saturated. So, I think that's really the other big thing, is understanding, what does the typical student look like and what does the typical student gravitate towards? Because if you're not creating marketing material or you're not creating content that the student at that university finds engaging, it doesn't particularly matter how much money you spend, because they're not going to pay attention to it because they're so flooded with constant social media and constant advertising that you really have to make sure that you're creating content that stands out.
And I would chime in. I think it's a longer timeline than people would expect. It really starts with the building of the brand for us. Your brand really does make or break your lease up. It's really what you're selling the community as is your branding from the beginning. So we try to get in as early as possible, honestly. If somebody is starting construction, breaking construction ground, and wants to get with us and start talking about what marketing looks like, we're happy to have conversations as early as 2 years in advance, especially to be a part of that branding process. Like us being able to give an opinion on being the experts of the area and experts of students and helping out clients, picking the correct branding for the community, because we know really how important that is. we really encourage clients to engage us far before we really start hiring staff or running social ads or even like thinking about those things. So I would say in line with construction kicking off, we want to get started as early as possible.
You know, and it's absolutely, I know we're talking about budget versus plan. We always, when Threshold gets involved, we're always seeing it that the budget's done, because the budget's depending on the size, number of beds, market, so many things are really setting that in place that the budget is ready to go. And then we get into the marketing plan, and everybody here has touched on a lot of great things. I'd add one other caveat, is that as you're looking at the timeline for this, one of the things that can elongate the timeline is certainly the number of decision makers you have in the marketing process. Quite often, if you have only one, say, particular interested party that's making decisions, you can move much more quickly. So as you start off with the name, because we typically follow the same, plan, at least with regard to, it's going to be a very waterfall Gantt chart type process that we're going to follow. But when we have when we have developers, when we have operators, when we have investors and multiple parties that need to give opinions depending on how they interact, it can really elongate your marketing timeline. And that's something to take in consideration as you're building that plan and the timeline out.
Well, great. Let's move on to this next question beyond the budget. And guys, sorry, Jessica is just having some computer problems we can't get past. And so if she can fix them, she'll join us. If not, we're going to move along. So I wanted to ask you guys, I've just launched a poll to kind of see who's in our audience. The overwhelming majority is site level staff at this point, and then regional staff beyond that. For those that have never done a marketing budget or marketing plan for a new dev, how much different is it from a stabilized property?
Very different. It's completely different. So one thing would be just dollars spent would be one of the first things I'd say. You spend way more money with a lease-up marketing plan than you would with operational. So sometimes we get new clients doing their first development, and that's a big sticker shock for them up front, but it's so important, really. You can save money at the end of the day if you start strong and then taper off later. So when we go into a new development and somebody's really trying to be, budget friendly, it's not a good idea. We always have those conversations up front, but it's worth the money and it's worth the cost to get the high rents that you want, to get the quality residents, and to fill up as fast as you would like to. The timeline's completely different. Like we said, we're pre-leasing and starting marketing. You are probably thinking about your pre-leasing when you have an operational deal. You're going to do your renewals, and then you're going to go find your new leases, and there's a cadence to that. You don't have renewals at this deal. So we're trying to get in the semester before your temporary office even opens up. So we're talking 18 months in advance sometimes of the first move in for, marketing. You're doing all outreach. You don't have residents to renew. You don't have that cushion of that 30 to 40% of residents staying where you only have to fill up 60% of the building. You also don't have a building to sell. So you're selling a dream. You're selling, a story at this point, and you have to get people to trust you that these beautiful renderings we're showing you is exactly what the building is going to be. So brand awareness, they need to know who you are. Nobody knows that you exist. You got to go out and get people to know who you are. You got to make them excited enough that they'll come do an action for you, take a tour, follow your Instagram, eventually sign a lease. There's a lot of extra layers, I would say, to the marketing plan for a new development than a stabilized asset. And it's a lot more fun if I can plug that as well. I think I love the new development marketing.
Just kind of curious, because this leasing season, especially in the tier ones, have gone so well, and just wondering if you guys are experiencing any new deliveries this year where, because of the increased enrollment at those flagship universities, that you're seeing that the spend is not as much as what it has been on a new dev in the past. I don't know if anybody. Yeah,
I think that in paired with the construction delays of COVID, there was not, we were in a cadence that new deliveries were coming every single year. Students were used to it. And then we kind of went through a gap where that didn't happen. So it's new and exciting. And we know that, with universities, we're turning over students. We have a new generation in there who hasn't gotten to experience the fun lifestyle of living somewhere brand new. So I think there's a lot of things that have come into play with why we've been so successful. But Obviously, the marketing spends have been down on some of our lease ups. A lot of them have been a lot easier, but like I said, we don't plan for that. We go into it with a full healthy budget, with a full plan, and then we get the bonus of being able to taper off at the end very early and save all those dollars and use some of that for move-in day. Make a really great experience at move-in day for residents to renew right away. Those types of things. So I would say absolutely, and I'll pass the question on to anybody else that wants to chime in.
Well, great. Well, hey, we'll go ahead and move on to the next question. And Billy, this is your time to shine, man. This was the whole reason we invited you onto this, because
it's nice for somebody to want me.
I want to move into digital marketing, and I'm going to start with just that simple question: when should a website be in place for a new development?
Yeah, getting into pre-leasing for sure. And I won't say timeline's hard because it depends on everybody. But the first thing that you want to do is you've got to get through the name and the logo and have something that you're going to put on the landing page. So that depends on where you are in the process. And we always start with a landing page because it allows everyone to start getting leads early. Even before there's the ability for anyone to apply online. That is join our VIP list. It starts there because you can start capturing lead information to where the teams will have just this bank of people that they can go contact. I mean, these are potential residents that they can go get. And that happens once you've got at least the name and logo down and you're ready to get out there. And so this is when you're starting to put construction banners out. You've got, we're doing that different on buildings, and whether it's a 19-story tower in College Station, we're using the 17th floor to have something face campus. We're doing, fence wraps that we're putting around the campus in Columbus. So we've done that. We place the URL. We drive traffic to get leads. Now, you definitely want to have at least a minimum of certain very quality renderings ready to go on the landing page. And we've gone away from being lifestyle images are still used in some cases, but by and large, as long as you've got some floor plans, you've got some renderings that you're able to show in the landing page, it's viable to start getting the interest and the leads. And then once you're ready to get into full leasing and pre-lease mode, you've got that website where you have much more of the information necessary to build it out, because the websites are, typically 9 to 16 pages. It needs to be that holistic experience. That UX is going to drive people where they can go in. You've got your digital campaigns running. You're driving the traffic, and they're able to go in and get that experience to say, all right, what do the amenities look like? What do the rooms look like? What are my options? What's availability? What's pricing? Once all of that's ready and you can put that into the website. And listen, we have seen just at this point too, and this wasn't like this in the past, especially pre-pandemic, is renderings and flyovers and virtual reality. All of that is completely viable. The quality of them today are so different from what they were several years ago that it is, and you look at too, is like our audience is so digital that this experience for them is completely within their wheelhouse. And so, once you've got all that ready, you're in really great shape in terms of just, renting on leasing online.
Well, and while we're on the subject of renderings, and I agree with you, I think that is the most important part. I wanted to go back to the survey really quick and kind of talk a little bit about what those students said, and just for you guys to know kind of how this was done. The U4 team selected a set of renderings and created alternative versions of them in different lighting, levels of staging, and number of people. We presented each rendering and its alternative version to 500 18 to 24-year-olds throughout the U.S. and asked them which they like better. So here's a couple of things. It's probably a little hard for folks to see here, but it was interesting to see daylight versus evening, and how some of the males, preferred the evening one versus females were typically, they like the lighter one. Same thing with geography. We saw that with a lot of the southern states. Like for this one, for example, folks from the southern states like the bedroom that showed the brighter, sun coming in versus kind of the evening or whatever. Same thing with the exterior pictures. And one thing that I thought was really kind of unique, because I always thought for lifestyle pictures, or for, I should say lifestyle, for amenity pictures, that folks wanted to be able to see people using them. But actually, coming back from this report, most people prefer to see those spaces without people in them. Here's one, for example, with the sky deck. Another one with the swimming pool. I'm just curious, does that surprise any of you guys that the students would prefer not to see the students or anybody in the pictures?
No. I mean, I think it just shows the importance of the amenities and what they're looking at when we're, the first thing everyone looks at when they go to a website is a floor plan. I mean, they'll go to the homepage, and the first place they go, it's shown in data as floor plan, but amenities are critical, and they want to use the amenities. It's not the people in them that's important to them.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's move along. I want to talk a little bit about SEO, and PPC efforts. When should that begin?
Well, I commented on it a little bit, and I'm sure the group has when you're getting into pre-leasing, you want to start about 2 to 3 months before pre-leasing is typically where you want to kick it off. And something you can run different campaigns. You'll have social media running. You've got paid social media versus owned social media, which you may take a little bit of a different approach with, depending on which staff you've got hired at the time. So that's something to consider, but also it's not just how you play with the actual campaigns, but it's the budget within the campaigns. Because as you start to pick up traction, you can dial. I mean, it's typically a very aggressive budget that's used on these lease ups. And as we start to see lease velocity move forward, and whether it's a hockey stick or whatever, we can dial down. I mean, not too early. You want to keep that thing running as long as you can, and then not stop the marketing, but dial it down as you get to certain percentages and occupancy or in leasing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I agree with what Billy said. I think that the other important thing to consider is what type of content are you creating for those early SEO and PPC ads that are running, right? Because we all are aware that sometimes those SEO and PPC ads take a while to stabilize and become really effective. So you want to be really strategic with the type of content that those ads are creating. And so it's kind of like creating this mystique around your brand new brand. Because again, it's all about getting the interest of the student that those ads are targeting. So, in recent years, CA Student Living has been utilizing a lot of lifestyle photographs. So we'll physically go to the campus and hire people that are, in Greek life or part of organizations and students at the actual university and do lifestyle photography, lifestyle video shoots. I think video campaigns have become more and more of a staple. You're seeing it with a lot of the big developers now. They're creating these beautiful lifestyle video campaigns, and it's kind of the first thing they post on their Instagram or their TikTok ads. So I would say lifestyle photograph and lifestyle videography are two of the really big things that we have been focusing on. And the resident feedback and the prospect feedback has been just phenomenal from those. And we hear it all the time that, they checked this out because we looked interesting and it looked exciting and it was a kind of lifestyle that they were interested in living.
Gotcha. Well, hey, let's move on to on the ground marketing and talk a little bit about how far in advance of pre-leasing that should start and, what it should consist of. Adam, let's start with you on this.
Sure. So, it's definitely market specific. We, Austin, Texas is a market where students historically will start signing, as early as, 14 to 16 months in advance of move in. So I think there are some scenarios where this, what I'm going to say doesn't apply, but ideally in a normal market where pre-leasing starts in August, September, I think it is fantastic if you can begin on the ground marketing 16 to 18 months before your delivery. So that's going to put you in, February to April. a year out from, or the year before your property is going to deliver.
Gotcha.
And, you know, as far as what it should consist of, I think you can send a temporary team of marketers to the market to start building that brand awareness and start generating, you know, your VIP list. I think you can, you know, also if you have the staffing model that allows you to go ahead and put the team that's going to do the lease up on the ground that early, that's even better. And, you know, they should be focused on going where the students are already going to be. And, you know, if you think about that, you know, February, March, April to the end of the spring semester timeframe, you likely have different kind of events around campus that are happening. You know, they can get out and go on and around campus to do their guerrilla marketing. They can also try to participate in events that students are already going to be attending. Housing fairs a lot of times are happening in the springtime. Relay for Life events are happening in the springtime a lot of times. And then sometimes there's very unique events that happen that attract a lot of students. Something that we just participated in for our lease up in Bloomington, Indiana at Indiana University was this really cool collegiate bike race called the Little 500. And I personally didn't get to go, which I'm really disappointed about, but I heard it was amazing. And in fact, one of my colleagues said it was the coolest college student event that he's ever been a part of. So trying to identify things like that are already happening, and, you know, maybe your marketing team can have a sponsorship or set up a table or just attend the event and hand out, you know, t-shirts, koozies, sunglasses, you know, some promo items. If you're, you know, go where the students are and build that awareness. And then, you know, looking a little bit closer to August, over the summertime, you've got, you know, dorm move outs that are going to be happening. You got summer orientations, summer school. So there's a lot of opportunity for your teams to start building that awareness and interest very early on. And I think, you know, the sooner that you're able to do that, the better off you're going to be when it comes time to launch leasing in the fall.
That's funny that you say that, because I went to Indiana and I was definitely a part of the Little 500 festivities. So I can attest that it is one of the coolest. It's one of the coolest races in college for sure. The only thing I think I would add to that is, you know, Adam mentioned that having like that promo and that swag in those early marketing efforts, that should be really strategic. And, you know, the question is often, how do we get new and creative with swag? Because, you know, everyone's tired of the same koozies, sunglasses. You know, one thing that is really effective is just getting on to Instagram and TikTok social media platforms and seeing what's popular with the students that are currently in college. And trying to create, and I'm sure that Billy has plenty of examples of this, but trying to create some really interesting swag that kind of mimic things that they already own, or things that they want, but maybe they can't afford. So we, you know, a great example is we created a reusable bag that looks just like a bag you carry out of Lululemon. It had the same font or the same print, and a similar color scheme, but it was in our, you know, logo. That was a huge hit because people want to look like they're carrying something, and you want them to use the swag, because swag does nothing for you if it just sits on a shelf or goes into a trash can. So to Adam's point, I think getting the swag out there, but being really strategic and understanding what that market is currently trending with or using is going to create a huge buzz. Like the most recent example would be Stanley Cups. I'm sure that everybody, or a lot of people on this webinar, know what Stanley Cups are. So recreating an affordable version of the Stanley Cup has been a really successful piece of swag for us as well.
Gotcha. Hey, before we move off of marketing and start talking about leasing office, we've got a couple of questions that I wanted to go to. We've got one from Jake Zarino. I'm sorry, Jake. The name is I can't say the last name. But anyway, what percentage more per year does a marketing lease-up budget tend to be than the same site stabilized marketing budget? We talked a little bit about that earlier as far as some of the differences, but from a percentage standpoint, anybody want to take a stab at that?
If you're thinking strictly just advertising and promotion, I would say 3 to 6 times probably.
Okay.
And that's not taking into consideration, the cost of a temporary leasing office, all of those sorts of things. I'm thinking strictly like, your Google campaign budget, your paid social, your promo events, your promo items, that type of budget.
Gotcha. Billy, just, from a digital perspective, do you have, because I know you're servicing more than just student housing, is there is typically a difference that you see?
In terms of still like the budget difference between those?
Yeah, I would say specifically from, how you guys are bidding out, student versus senior or something else. Is there a difference, or is it typically all the same?
If we're going to get into vertical spend, student is at one level, then conventional is probably one step up, and then senior is even one more step above that. And that's simply because the value of a resident at a senior housing is extremely valuable. You're talking anywhere from $60,000 to $72,000 a year, depending on the type of service that they're getting. And it can be more and for longer periods, right? You're talking about someone that could live in that community for 5-10 years. So the value in advertising is a little different on that. But, from a stabilized, if we go back to digital and stabilized versus lease up, it's, digital differences. It can be probably, it's much in line with Adam's numbers. As I'd say it drops to maybe 50% of what it was in lease up.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, hey, I want to move on to talking about the leasing office, because as we all know, with the leasing office on a new dev, you're not necessarily going to have a model to show off. I have seen some that have built out models within a leasing trailer or something like that. But, I wanted to, I think I've got a slide here. Yeah, I did want to talk about what the student said, which was as far as visiting leasing offices. And as you can see here, the overwhelming majority is that is still something that's very important for them before they actually sign a lease. So I wanted to pose the question to you guys: what is an ideal leasing office for a new dev? And, just kind of talk about location size and the needed elements. I think we're going to start with Jessica on this, but if somebody else wants to take it.
I'll start. I think that there's a couple of trains of thought to a leasing office. A traditional leasing office is always still going to be your best option. But I think, the word traditional has changed in the last 2 to 3 years on what we consider, a really good leasing office. Whereas in the past, it had to be decorated, but, it could just be decorated with renderings and maybe some furniture. But now the shift has really become creating an experience from the moment that prospect walks into the physical space to the moment that they move in on move-in day. CA Student Living has done a really great job of this, and we're fortunate to have such an awesome design team. And so what we've done is we've taken elements of our future building spaces and the renderings, and we've actually put them into our leasing offices. So when the student walks in, they're seeing actual elements that will also exist in the building. So from the wallpaper to the furniture that's in the front lobby, it's going to match exactly what they've already seen. So you're creating this experience. And I think Joanna mentioned it earlier, you're building a dream. This is a really important piece of that, because again, when you don't have a building to show, that leasing office needs to provide that same experience and that same sentiment, so that when they do move in, you've met or exceeded those expectations. And that carries across, of course, to renderings and all of that stuff as well. But I think that traditional leasing office is so important, and creating that experience is really important.
Gotcha. Anybody else with what is ideal for a leasing office these days? Well, so I do want to move on, because what do you do when there's not an ideal situation? And what are some of the alternatives that are out there? A couple years ago, I discovered this group, Ootbox. They were actually on Shark Tank, and they had reached out to me to see if their product was something that made sense for student housing. And they were thinking more along the lines of having a pod for studying or things like that. And I said, you know what, actually, we've got a lot of construction sites that are really, really tight, and if we could actually use this as a leasing office, that may be something that would work. And Sarah, I think you guys may have been their first trial with that, and we've got a couple for I believe it's Identity or Uncommon that are posted here, and then we've got one. I think this one up in the upper right hand corner is Hugo. I think it was being last week or 2 weeks ago was being shipped off to Tucson, I believe they said. So how are these type of alternative spaces working for you? And, are there other types of alternative spaces that people should consider?
Yeah, the Oot Box was great. Especially when you're in a case where maybe your leasing office is lagging a little bit on construction, or it's a few weeks delayed in its delivery. As we all know, that happens. And the Oot Box was a wonderful tool for us. We set it up, we decorated it similarly to how the interior of the leasing office was going to be decorated. We lit it at night, which was also a really cool feature.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. We tried to make it a space where we could sit and work, but it was also a space where if a student wanted to use it as an Instagram background or wanted to take a picture of it at night, it still looked really cool. And we did get some really cool photos of it at nighttime. So I think that it's a great alternative, especially again, when you're building the mystique of the brand. Having that Oot Box set up outside, especially in the area where this one was, it's a really high traffic area for students that live in apartments at Boise State. So it was really intriguing, and lots of people walked up to it and looked inside of it. So I think it was a very effective tool. And, the other case would be if, we were fortunate, if, a while ago, we had an office that was a little bit behind, and we ended up using a WeWork space. And we were very fortunate. We had a very awesome team that got really involved in the community and on campus life. And they actually did not see a hindrance to leasing at all in the fall semester by using that co-working space. So I also think co-working spaces are a viable option, especially when you can kind of decorate it or outfit it. So if a leasing office just isn't in the budget, because they are sometimes pretty pricey, rents in high traffic areas for those types of spaces can be pretty high. So I think an alternative, WeWorking or co-working space is a great alternative. And we saw great success with it. But that, of course, comes with having the right people in the right place. So again, we were fortunate to have two managers that really bought into the mission. But yeah, those would be, two great options for alternative to traditional leasing offices.
Great. Anybody else have any experience with alternative type of leasing offices?
We've done the WeWork space a couple of times where we were, working on getting our actual temporary leasing office open. And like Sarah said, I think it's a really nice, viable option. I don't think I'd want to go through an entire lease up from a WeWork space, but you could certainly give it a try. And we've done a food truck too for the same situation. We were able to set it up right outside in the parking lot where our actual temporary leasing office was going to be, and set up some nice fake grass and have a cornhole set, and the staff just kind of hanging out and greeting students as they walk by. And so, it works. And I think when you're kind of, in a corner, trying to get your actual temporary leasing office open, it's, those are some really creative solutions, I think, to make sure they're able to continue to move the needle, during a challenging time.
Gotcha. A couple of things. One, I wanted to update everybody on some of the polls that I've been launching here. Actually, I said earlier that the overwhelming majority of folks that were joining us today were actually site level, but that flipped during the time, and it ended up being 30% site, 39% regional level. So way to go, regionals. And then also a good majority of the people were also have worked on a leasing team for a new startup. So that was great as well. And one other thing I want to mention to everybody, the report that is available from U-Force, I launched an offer just a second ago where it's got a link where you can actually go download that. So if you're interested in getting that, just click on that link. It'll take you to another tab and you'll be able to download it. It's a fantastic piece of insight into what our students are thinking. This discussion about the alternative leasing offices have been something that that's been a conversation over the past, I would say certainly past, 8 years, as these construction sites get closer to campus and they get tighter. It's not like back in the day when you're building something that's a half mile from campus and you're doing something garden style and you've got the land to, put up a leasing trailer. And I've been kind of amazed at a conversation I had at Interface last month with some folks that said they've got a new development coming out and they don't even plan on doing a leasing office. They're going to handle, everything virtual and, have some meetup times that they're going to be meeting with folks, but they're not actually going to open an office. And that reminded me of a story that I tell a lot of folks. If you guys know Chase Lawrence at College Town Properties in Athens, when he did his first deal in Knoxville, I guess this was in 2010, I believe it was. He actually went to Cumberland Avenue and just worked out of the Panera Bread and kind of had a concierge type of meeting with everybody that that he was talking to about leasing those apartments, and he leased it out 100%. I think it's only about, I don't know, I think it's maybe 40 cottages or something like that. It's not a big property, but I thought that was really, really interesting that, he didn't need a leasing office. He just needed to meet with the folks and, kind of on their terms. And I'm just kind of wondering, have you guys experienced that where you don't need a leasing office, or are you guys having any, conversations about it with developers?
We don't currently have any projects in the pipeline where we're considering doing 100% virtual. I think trying that the first time would make me pretty nervous, just because having an office and a team, but I could absolutely, for a project that's really well located and you're going to get that organic visibility and interest, I could definitely see, going without a leasing office, because I think one of the major challenges of a lease-up is that people cannot see your project. And so you're really trying to get them to envision themselves living there and what it's going to be like. And a leasing office really helps with that sales pitch, essentially. And I think, the idea of taking that away is going to create additional challenges. Yeah. But, if you have the type of project where students are going to want to live there no matter what it costs, I don't care, just get me in, I could see a leasing office maybe not being necessary in that scenario.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely market dependent, like he said. That's not going to fit for every market. If you're in a market that you had a deliver late last year and you think you're going to go digital and not show some of the progress or not be able to show your quality of building, I think that would be a really tough sell. People want to see, feel, touch. Like, we are just showing renderings. We have to remember that. And so, like, what are they going to trust us about? So it would have to be a situation where it would be an easy lease up, where people are going to want to live there, the high demand. It's, perfect location. We know this is going to be an easy win. I think you definitely could go all digital, but we would do that last choice. If it was like, we get a lease up last second, they don't have an office and there's no options. All right, we'll go digital. We'll give it a shot. And I think it would be okay, but it would be really hard to do the vision selling and building rapport and building trust. People have to trust you. They have to trust that building's going to deliver. We know with student housing, the buildings look crazy until the last month. They don't look like they're going to deliver. And you do have a lot of those conversations. And so you want to have a place where people can come in, have conversations with you face to face, see that you can build an office out with quality product. And like, hey, if you go into an office and it's exceptional and looks incredible, you can trust that the renderings that look good are probably going to come to fruition. Like, they know what they're doing. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of like pieces that will be missing if you go all digital that you would have to have solutions for, and pre-think like what are some of the hurdles we go through at other developments that we have to solve for if we're not going to have a place to show off what we can do and what we're delivering.
Yeah, I think to Joanna's point, you know, the quality of the renderings and the amount of the rendered spaces would definitely have to increase. You know, right now, if you're in a temporary leasing office and you're doing anywhere from, you know, 10 to 15 rendered spaces, you'd probably have to render all of your spaces, including a couple of different floor plan layouts. And then additionally, having like a virtual reality tour or a fly through that really flies through the entire building, and it gives people a better sense of what that building looks like, because you don't have a staff there to kind of build that additional dream. So that does come with additional costs. So then you have to kind of weigh the pros cons of getting, you know, additional renderings versus a temporary leasing space, because you definitely would need some more digital content that they could consume virtually.
Yeah. And I would say if you're part of that team that's going out to scout for, you know, a place, obviously the pedestrian access is going to be, you know, a key thing, and having enough parking. I can't stress that enough. Because if you're not, you know, if you're not on a place at the center of campus where everybody's walking, if they've got to drive to get to you, make sure you've got, you know, plenty of parking. But and don't be afraid to. This is one of the reasons it's so important to network with other student housing professionals at other companies, because, you know, and this actually happened in Knoxville. It wasn't a sublease situation, but I was helping a client in Knoxville, Tennessee a couple of years ago, and we were trying to find an office, and, you know, actually ended up using one that Landmark or storefront that Landmark had used for leasing out the standard. And, you know, that was fantastic. I've seen some other situations where they've, you know, there's been, you know, an issue where a lot of these commercial leases you have to do for, you know, a minimum of 5 years. Well, you know, you're only needing that kind of at max for 2 years, you know, on a pre-leasing standpoint. So there's a lot of folks out there that would love to sublease and get that off of their expenses. So don't be afraid to look into those type of spaces as well. Well, guys, I want to move on to, I think, what's probably the most important discussion of this, and that is the lease-up team. And I think, you know, when I think of the lease-up teams I've worked with in the past, there's just been something a little bit, you know, different with them, I guess is the best way of putting it, versus a stabilized property. And I think there's very much, you know, some differences that you have to consider when you're talking about leasing an entire apartment community and you're selling nonstop, and you don't have any residents to service. So can you guys talk a little bit to that?
Yes. There's definitely a unique personality set that comes with leasing up new developments. And sometimes you can find that unicorn of a person that can go do a lease up and then move into the stabilized asset and be fine as a community manager. But really, typically, the person's not, they're going to be a new development type person that's going to hop around for you and really be your go-to community manager for several years until they get promoted. So the outgoing personality, somebody that's not afraid to go have conversations with people on campus, with partnerships with buildings, somebody that's really great at, you know, getting a team's morale and hiring team, doing interviews, picking the right personalities, somebody that can engage the correct type of students at the university to be on your staff. Not everybody has that appeal to get students to want to work for them, especially part-time jobs. So it really does take a certain personality, a certain type of person. You want somebody that can, you know, is really engaged with the university. They don't have to be local, but when you move them there, they know how to go figure out what's cool with that university. What are the important schools that I need to be making contacts with? What businesses are the ones that draw the most students that I need to be having events with and partnerships with to show that we are somebody important and cool, and really get that easy in with their students. So Yeah, you just really got to find somebody that's an outgoing personality that has really good, work ethic, that's willing to put in the hours. It is, if you have a good, easy lease up, congratulations. You don't have to work too much. But if you don't, it is a grind. You're doing evening events. You're going to be there in the morning so that you can get on campus. Like, it is a little bit of a sacrifice, but there's a huge reward when it comes to new development. So it is really important you find the right person. You take your time, you find the right person. It is worth, some of the time lost if you're not finding the right candidate to get that person in, because if your entire team is the correct team, you will lease that building up. It comes down to like your branding. If students don't think you're cool, they're not signing leases with you. It's still that. It will always be that. The one thing that's the same with students every single year is they only care about what's cool. So you really have to, it's essential. Your team is essential. Right behind your branding, and your office would be third, in my opinion.
Well, and I've actually got a poll question to that. I'm gonna
okay.
put out here just a second of what everybody thinks is most important. But just kind of curious, I know some of your firms do, personality tests and those type of things. Are you guys utilizing anything like, DISC or Myers-Briggs or anything to see if, how that person's going to work in a new development situation?
We are not. I love that idea, but it always comes down to dollars, I think. We just have, we have strategic questions we ask. We have strategic people doing the interviews at this point. So people that have been involved in lease-ups, that have been involved in, successful lease-ups, more importantly. And then we have a certain set of questions we really need to get through. And referrals, honestly, we have a big enough company that has a good enough reputation at this point. We do get really great referrals. So being able to rely on people, this person's a great worker, and being able to get that back. You don't always get that, but I think that has been a huge help for us in recruiting.
Gotcha. Well, hey, I know we talk every year about, college students and how essential they are to the leasing team of being able to make that connection. But again, just curious, should college students be on that team? And if so, what's the capacity?
Yes, I think college students should be on the team. I think to what capacity, can vary. I think you want to consider what are the strengths and weaknesses of your full-time management team. And then ideally, I think you have for your college student team, you have a blend of strengths that, try to get some people that are really great on the sales floor and can do a great job with prospect follow-ups, but also try to have a couple of people that are going to do a great job at marketing events, can have a lot of connections on campus, and can post on their personal social media, and almost be essentially be influencers for your property and your brand. And I think you're kind of checking all the boxes if you can build a team of students that, have those strengths. And, I think another really important part of having college students on your team is that's your target demographic. And being, as a manager, being able to get their feedback and get their input and bounce ideas about marketing events or promo, whatever it may be, that's invaluable. And, I think you can do that with focus groups and things like that. But I personally really like having them as part of the team, because I think you can get them to buy into what you're doing. And, that amplifies your message to, that specific campus.
Hey, in the last minutes here, I want to move to leasing bonus structure. I've done a few of these in the past, and I typically do it a little bit different for new developments. So just kind of curious with you and your firms, and not necessarily your firms, but if you had your rathers, would you structure something differently for a new development versus stabilized? Obviously, there's a budget in both situations, but it's slightly different. And at the end of the day, new development is just about getting everything leased up. Any insight from you guys on that?
Yeah, I think that, in the past years, we've done it based on, pre-leasing goals. So we have benchmark standards that, we set out for the team at the very beginning of the year, and they earn portions of a full bonus as they hit those benchmarks. I actually think it's a great opportunity. Unlike a lot of my fellow panelists, CA Student Living hires new managers for every project. So we're going out and we're looking for people that can not only do the lease up, but then also kind of do that transition into operations. I think there's a little bit of value in having that same face that you signed a lease with be the same face that's there on move-in day. And that often means that they're not here with us for a full year. And a lot of times corporate bonus structure, you have to be with the team for the full year in order to get 100% of your bonus potential. So the way we structure it allows for that manager to be eligible for that full bonus potential as they hit those pre-leasing benchmarks, because that's ultimately their main goal, is to get you to budgeted occupancy and beyond. We got great feedback from our managers about that bonus structure, and I think it's a really fair way to do it. And it also gives the team something to continually strive for. There are lulls in new dev leasing, as we're all aware of. So having those benchmarks and those goals to reach, I think, is something that can always be part of their underlying strategy in leasing. It gives them something to work towards throughout the entire year.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Well, hey, I want to bring us to a close. We're at the top of the hour here. I do want to let everybody know about this poll that we just launched, which is, what do you think is the most important aspect to ensure a successful new dev? And of course, the winner there is 46%. I can't decide. All of these factors are the most important, but tied for second is pricing and leasing teams. So that's about what I expected. Well, folks, thanks so much for joining us today. I think this has been a fantastic. It was a fantastic panel, and you guys have given some great information to the folks that have registered for this. And I'm sure that they'll probably reach out to you on LinkedIn and try to ask you some more questions. So, but thanks so much for your time. And Jessica, if you're watching, I'll make sure you get on the next one. Well, guys,
thanks, Wes.
I want to take just a quick moment to remind everybody about Shop Talk, which is the industry's monthly webinar. We've got our next one coming up on Tuesday, June 13th. So make sure that you register for that. And it's great for anybody from the site level to the C-suite. And you can register there at shoptalk.info for that. Well, guys, thanks so much. And we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Wes.
Thanks, Wes. Thanks, everybody.